Welcome back to Awards Buzz. We're here talking about the Golden Globe film nominations. I'm Abe Friedtanzer,
I'm Shadan Larki.
And I'm Stacey Yvonne.
and we are here several hours after processing these nominations. I'd say there were not a lot of, it's weird. There aren't really that many surprises, but there were a few sort of like strange tweaks. So the best place to start is with arguably the top category, Best Motion Picture Drama, where two of the films that were expected to do very well did, Conclave and The Brutalist. However, that is pretty much where it stops in terms of films like Being Everywhere, getting the director and screenplay nominations. And it gets a little more interesting after that. Dune Part 2, which is expected to be a huge juggernaut, got nominated only for Best Original Score, which is funny because it is not eligible at the Oscars for Best Original Score. So I do not think we're going to end up with just a Best Picture nomination. I think it's still going to, steamroll some of the technical categories. But after that, otherwise, A Complete Unknown got two acting nominations, but isn't other. That was we were not sure how that was going to be late breaking. But then we have two films, Nickel Boys and September 5, that both only got nominated for this. And this has happened before. There have been films like that, but it feels a little bit strange to be starting off with the category where the drama nominees, only two of them got nominated for Best Director. Does that feel pretty weird?
Yes, this category completely floored me. Because September 5th, we should mention, we've all been wondering how well this movie is gonna play all season because certain people in the industry have been kind of going to bat for it. So the fact that it shows up at the Globes, okay, but the fact that it shows up at the Globes in drama and nothing else is very strange. And then Nickel Boys, why only the one Is it because it feels very American? I don't know. I'm really not sure what to make of. And then you would think, Dune Part 2, Denis would do well here. Yeah, I'm just confused. I don't really have commentary other than why.
This actually looks pretty on par, although I am surprised that A Complete Unknown snuck in there. And September 5 was just such a non-starter for me. It's like there were movies that were kind of in that same vein with the Juror Number 2, and then what's the Jude Law one?
The Order?
Yes, The Order, my goodness. Where it's like kind of in that same, thriller-ish kind of vein, and I feel like those are more impactful, although as you can see, not by much. But and I actually was surprised. I think Doom Part 2, I think once people realized it was like it's filler, it's so much filler. And so I think that people might react to that. It's gorgeous, beautiful filler, great gowns, beautiful gowns, but yeah, this it's just so uninteresting to me. It's also extremely male heavy. And yeah, that's all I got
We
for it.
We should mention that Dune Part 2 didn't even make the cinematic box office achievement, which it seems like it would have been a shoe-in for that because it was the most talked about movie for the first half of the year, if not longer.
From what I understand, there may have been specific like submission requirements for that. I don't know
Oh,
that it was
I
eligible,
see. Okay.
Mm,
but
Okay.
I'm not sure. I will say personally, I really like September 5 as one of my top films, and I also
mm,
only predicted it in this category. So I guess I'm not, even though I guess I'm not surprised, given that's what I said. I'm more surprised that Nickel Boys didn't get a few other things. I will say that every time I like you see a surprising list, you're like, okay, and then you're like, wait a minute, what didn't get in?
yeah,
Blitz, we thought could get in, but no one's really mourning that because we weren't so sure. Gladiator 2, Denzel's in, nothing else for the film. But the
Sing
biggest
Sing.
loss, and I hope you've, yeah, Sing Sing, Shadan, is not here, which is very unfortunate. And I think that I sort of thought that was going to happen, but I was less pessimistic recently because it's been doing well with certain things. But it's a bit of a worrisome sign. That said, we must remember these are not the Oscars. This is not the end all be all. This is just, one stop along the way. But this is certainly a big, big boon to Conclave and The Brutalist, and a huge, step back for every other film that's here and not here.
Hmm.
Um,
Agree.
I think I was less surprised. I only missed one in the best picture comedy or musical race. Who wants to start that one off?
They're
Yeah, so
calling
I'll go ahead.
Honora a comedy?
You didn't make the
Okay,
rules.
go
Yes,
ahead.
we made the rules. Things would be very, very different.
So Honora challenges Amelia Perez, which I'm rocking my Amelia Perez. The most nominated film of the Globes this year, by the way, Amelia Perez, with 10 nominations. And then A Real Pain, The Substance, which had a great day, and Wicked are our six there.
I'm very happy
So
about The Substance. I wasn't
Substance
sure
did as
which
well as it possibly could here, which is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm really hoping good things for it. The rest were kind of on point. I think we kind of predicted the rest of these.
Well, I would say Saturday Night is the one that missed out here, and I think people are expecting to get a SAG nomination for ensemble, and so it could have been like Golden Globe nominee, SAG nominee, whatever. And I think it is sort of not necessarily petering out, but it's not making enough of a splash. I had
Yeah.
doubted challengers. Again, The Substance did great. A Real Pain did pretty well. I hadn't realized that Amelia Perez got that many nominations, and I think it's
Mhm.
great. That said, I think it does have its detractors. However, when a film gets 10 nominations like here, like it is seriously doing
It's
very, very well.
undeniable. Yeah.
Even if other people don't like it, Globe voters clearly do. I think the one that didn't do as well as it should have is Wicked. I think we all thought, John M. Chu and Jonathan Bailey could be here, and it doesn't mean it's not going to win the trophies it's up for. It could easily win Picture, Actress, Supporting Actress, and Box Office Achievement, no problem. But it's not. It didn't have the smash that The Substance, Amelia Perez, and Honora were able to do here. So. Um, Moving on to the acting categories, if we're sticking with drama, I am pleased to say I wasn't entirely sure when they announced it, but I did get 6 out of 6 on my best actor predictions. Um, we have Ray Fiennes. We're not entirely sure how to pronounce his name, but he's nominated, and that's great for him. We have Adrian Brody, who seems to be a powerhouse. Coleman Domingo did get in, which is great. Timothy
Yeah.
Chalamet, Sebastian Stan, who is hilariously nominated for 2 films that have almost no other support, and Daniel Craig for Queer, who is sticking in there for the Luca Guadagnino film that is not up for Best Picture. Any surprises for either of you in this one?
No, and I'm surprised, and I'm happy to see because one of the things we did discuss was like, are they gonna go for The Apprentice or are they gonna not touch it at all? And they did go for it, so I'm pleased to see that.
I would have liked to see Clarence, unless he's in supporting.
He is in, but missing from supporting.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah.
Yes.
But I am glad that Coleman got his, and that's gonna be an interesting category. That one's gonna be one, I think it's gonna depend on timing, just kind of what's in the zeitgeist when the votes are in.
I do think Coleman is out of the run for the win here because of the lack of attention for the film. But I think it's a very much a 3-way race, or probably a 2-way race between Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet. Um, with Timothy being his popularity being the boost. Obviously, The Brutalist did better overall.
Hmm.
Um, Shadan, I feel like you have some feelings about Best Actress in a drama.
Um. Well, I was gonna say I have some feelings about Timothy Chalamet and A Great Unknown, but we'll save that for
Yeah.
another podcast. I guess. I mean, another episode, I guess. Okay. So we have Pamela Anderson for The Last Showgirl, Angelina Jolie for Maria, Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl, Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door, Fernanda Torres in I'm Still Here, and Kate Winslet for Lee. Which I did say that if that nominating Kate Winslet for Lee would be the most Globesy thing to ever Globes, and it did happen. And that we should mention she's also a double nominee. A lot of double nominees this year. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but a lot of double nominees across like television and film, which I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting. Um, Honestly, I really like this category though, you guys. Like Fernanda Torres, incredible that she's here. Pamela Anderson getting in, incredible for such a tiny film. Um, Angelina Jolie, Nicole Kidman maybe seemed a little bit more obvious. Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door. I'm interested that that movie, correct me if I'm wrong, did not show up anywhere else.
Correct.
Um,
Initially, I was quite gung ho on it everywhere else. I'm not sure what to make of it after this. I'm glad Tilda still got in, but I do not think it is the awards juggernaut I once perhaps mistakenly thought it was.
I wonder if it's a Pedro Almodovar of it all. I think it's he kind of has a every other thing with him too.
I also don't think the Golden Globes ever go quite as much for him.
Yeah.
I do think this category is fascinating because I would say, without, I mean, Angelina is her own thing and Tilda, but otherwise the other four are all like they needed this. Like this was an important step. Baby Girl is not a guaranteed thing, even though Nicole Kidman is super well known and super popular. I think that film is still like on the bubble in terms of how it will do. I'm Still Here, same thing. Pamela Anderson needed this a lot. And Kate Winslet, who I don't think is going further than this, but you never know because Frances Fisher is very much behind her. Unfortunately, that brings us to who's missing, and the answer is Marianne Jean Baptiste for Hard Truths, which is really, really sad. I do not think this is the end of it at all. I think, Mike Lee, you can never predict what's going to happen with him. But this category is very competitive. I do think Angelina Jolie is still going to win, but there's a world I think where Pamela Anderson wins this, at least in the Golden
I
Globes.
well, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I could see any of these people win, to be honest. I could see Fernanda Torres. There's a lot of passion behind that performance. I could see,
Hmm.
the HFPA, like they went for oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name, but the French actress
Isabelle
that was
Huppert.
up against Emma. Yes, they went for her. So they do go for foreign talent. I mean, they could go for Kate Winslet. So there's a scenario where any six of these women could win this, and I would just be like, yep, that makes sense.
Stacey, do you want to bring us over to comedy musical for Best Actor?
Oh my. Let's see. Oh, for best actor. Okay. Sorry, my mouse is
Can I
it
just
must
say this
know
is
that
my
shenanigans are afoot because it's trying to go
this is
up instead of down. We
What are
my
you
have
saying,
Jesse.
favorite
Shadan?
category. I was just gonna say
Yes.
this is
Okay.
my absolute favorite category. I'm obsessed with it.
All right, let's hear it.
So, best performance by male actor in a motion picture, musical, or comedy. We have Jesse Eisenberg for Real Pain, Hugh Grant for Heretic, Gabrielle LaBelle for Saturday Night, Jesse Plemons for Kinds of Kindness, Glenn Powell for Hitman, and Sebastian Stan for this time for A Different Man. Um, this it's so funny that this is your favorite because this is one that's one of the most confusing for me. There's so many just wildly strange picks, but if anything, I really want to see Glenn Powell take it just for the chaos of it all. I wanted to do that.
I think he's terrific. I think it's a really great choice. I'm sad it didn't get the top nomination. Hugh
Mm.
Grant is one who I didn't have on here. I actually haven't seen Heretic yet because I'm not big on horror and I've heard mixed things about whether I should see it. I
It's
probably
not
will
that
I
now.
loved
horror.
it.
Yeah.
I
I
loved
enjoyed
it.
it.
It's good.
I am happy to see Jesse Plemons because I didn't love the film, but I think he is undeniably quite good in it, and it's nice to see him being recognized because he it's somehow hard to see how good he is in stuff. I'm
Yeah.
happy that Gabriel LaBelle got into because he does a lot in that movie, and if Saturday Night's not going to go that far, that's fair. Sort of reminds me also of when A Serious Man wasn't nominated for Best Comedy or
Mm.
Musical, but Michael Stuhlbarg was. Sebastian Stan, good for him. He's doing good stuff. I'm sad that Adam Pearson isn't nominated though, because he, to me, is one of the standouts of A Different Man. Um, and I'm sad that Ryan Gosling isn't here for the Fall Guy because like that movie was so much fun and he's great. I mean, so is Emily Blunt. But I thought they were both very enjoyable. And I don't think we're mourning it, but we should note that Joaquin Phoenix is not here, which we were all a little worried about happening.
Oh no.
So I think his Oscar campaign is dead now. We
Yeah.
hope maybe. Not because we don't like him, just because we think the film he does is not an
Yeah, that
Oscar film.
film.
Let's be clear here.
It's been dead for a while, Abe.
It might have been reinvigorated here. You never know. So
Also, no Josh O'Connor for challengers, which is interesting.
Uh just no
I
Josh
don't know.
O'Connor, period. But it might just be a little early. I mean, it might be too soon after The Crown and all those, but he's really shown himself to be a versatile and special actor because he was in Lee, showed popped up in there, and he's in these conversations, but for whatever reason, it's not folding over into the nominations.
I don't know what to make of Challengers. I really don't because I think it did fine. and probably better than it could have. But I don't know if it's going to be a big Oscar player. The fact that Luca Guadagnino was not nominated for Best Director for Call Me by Your Name just makes everything like about his whole career and awards trajectory very strange to me
You're
because I
like,
feel
what?
I saw that at Sundance. I didn't even love it as much as everyone else did, but we were going crazy for it, and it should have been an easy Best Picture winner, especially in a Shape of Water year where I love Shape of Water, but there are a lot of detractors. Like that was a film. I don't know. So that's strange to me. I don't know what to make of it. Um, but Zendaya did get into the Best Actress comedy musical category. Should note she's also in Dune Part Two, but Challengers got more nominations, which I don't think anybody expected. This category, we have Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison, Honora, Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, Demi Moore, The Substance. All four of those could easily win. Amy Adams for Night Bitch. And unfortunately, that means we don't have June Squibb for Thelma, who I think would have been a really great choice, and I had in my predictions. But otherwise, I don't think this category is too surprising. It's just super competitive.
It's so competitive. I don't have a clue which way they're gonna go because they could literally go. I'm like shocked because at first I was like, oh, Carl is a lock on this, like we're doing all that. But then I was like, but then Cynthia Revo, which they are really pushing that now, and I mean for good reason. Mikey's kind of
Wicked
always
underperformed, so like theoretically, she's
Yeah.
actually the weakest aside from Amy and Zendaya. But I don't know.
we'll
I think
see.
with the substance doing as well as it did and Demi being Demi and the Globes being the Globes, like it seems like that could be, which I would love. I just feel like that would be a moment. And the Globes, as I've mentioned many times, love a moment. So, but
Wouldn't
I have
Carla
no
also be a
idea.
moment? Yeah, Carla
Carla
Sofia
would be a
Gaston.
huge, it would be a huge moment. And I just feel like, yeah, I,
I've also
but
been asking people every interview I do about, what are they watching? What do they like? And everybody says Honora. So like people love Mikey. Like it's hard, I do
A
not
lot of
know
people
who's
have,
gonna win
yeah.
this.
yeah.
Yeah, I do not know. So yeah, well, let's move over to the supporting races who did not do very well here. Let's who wants to take supporting actor?
I will because my beloved Clarence Macklin is missing here, and I'm not okay. So we have Yura Borisov for Nora, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, and Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. Um,
Oof.
several really surprised. So like having seen A Complete Unknown, don't know. I just don't care for that movie very much, and I wasn't really sure how well that movie was gonna do outside of Timmy Chalamet. But Edward Norton has been doing very well with critics groups this past
Hmm.
week, and now he shows up here, so that kind of makes me think like, is he more of a lock for an Oscar nomination than I
He's also
think he
great in the
is?
movie. He's great in the movie, I think.
I
Well,
I
not
could
Disagree
just
debate.
that's
that,
fine.
but I there was some article like headline that said like Chalamet asked for another take after Edward Norton outacted him in a scene or whatever, and so like they really are pushing the Edward Norton of it all. This is one for me. I would have said Kieran Culkin all day, every day. His performance in A Real Pain was just splendid, but now we have Guy Strong in there, and we have Denzel, of course, is going to be pushing hard. So that's a category, and Yura could be a surprise because that was such an interesting kind of nuanced performance. So that's a
Yeah,
category.
and I've been worried about Yura Borisov missing just because I wasn't sure
Yeah,
if the Honora men would split, but the fact that he shows up here and he's again done really well with critics this past week makes me feel like he's in a very comfortable spot. I'm not ready to let Clarence Macklin go. Like I still feel very
same.
confident about that. Like I don't think Jeremy Strong is going to be something that translates to the Oscars, but this is just a fascinating category.
Right. I don't know
Um,
what to make of Jeremy Strong. I don't really know because I feel like that movie, it's like they're not endorsing the movie. It's just the actors. There's nothing about the script, anything else, but it did do well as some precursors. I think that if we're talking about the films that did well here, Conclave did very well, but a Stanley Tucci nomination would have really cemented it as like a possible frontrunner, and it didn't
yeah,
get that. Also, there's plenty of other men in the film that could be nominated. Um, Jonathan Bailey also we had said would be nominated, but wasn't. But I would
Mm,
severely downgrade Denzel's chances here just because the film isn't anywhere else. I don't think that means he's lost the Oscar, but I don't think he's going to win here. I think it's Kieran and Guy Pearce, and I would give Kieran the edge because he's Kieran and Succession is so recent. That said,
And a
maybe Guy Pearce
previous
not having
Golden
won
Globe
anything
winner.
could be good. Hmm?
Oh, well, I was gonna
Yeah,
say Kieran has history with winning at the Globe, so.
right, right. And Guy
For
Pearce just,
Succession.
yeah. So yeah, and then we move on to the supporting actors category, and this one, I mean, I think it seems like most people are convinced this is a race between Ariana Grande and Zoe Saldana, and they're both here, but so is Selena Gomez, a double nominee, and Margaret Qualley for The Substance, which we all called but was not a sure thing. Similarly, Felicity Jones and Isabella Rossellini were not at all guaranteed, but shows how The Brutalist and Conclave really did very well because in both cases, Isabella Rossellini is a very small part of Conclave, and Felicity
Hmm.
Jones doesn't enter The Brutalist till way into it. Those were not sure things. Um, the problem is who got snubbed here, and the answer is Danielle Deadweiler for The Piano Lesson, which
Mm-hmm.
is very worrisome because none of us are surprised, but that's a film that really could be part of this conversation. It should be. And I wish it was. Saoirse Ronan, we said we weren't sure about, and she neither of her films did anything, and that doesn't mean she's out, but it's a pretty big miss on both of these counts to get in. Um, I don't think these inclusions, while they help the films, I don't think they change the fact that it's Ariana versus Zoe for this race.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that the Amelia Perez is going to split it because when they originally started kind of campaigning, this was supposed to be Zoe's year. They were like, this is her performance, and she's the one who's supposed to be in there. And then we have and then at that point they didn't know how they were going to split up the performances. So then Carla was still in that discussion. And I'm like, if you have three people from the same movie, those votes get split way too easily. So I'm wondering how that's going to fare. Oof, this is a interesting category. Yeah.
Well,
I
another
think Felicity
category.
Jones could surprise people with that
Yeah,
one. I
I
think
was
she
gonna
could be
say,
the
I wonder
upset.
if that, or I mean, Margaret Qualley, we love her, but she's a
Sure.
nepo baby, and then you also have Isabella Rossellini, who is like an international icon, and
Mm-hmm.
like her performance was one that I've been sort of writing off all season because I was like, she's just not in it, but
You're
she is
right.
showing up everywhere. There is so much passion
Yeah.
for that performance, so like her nomination here has made me rethink, like, okay, I need to take her more seriously because she made it in even though none of the supporting actors did. I think that says something. So,
And the Margaret Qualley for the Nepo baby things, I know a lot of people don't know, whose baby she is, but then also she has made a mark of herself of doing these performances that actually have talent and depth behind them. And so I could see it being a kind of a validation. It's like if you're going to be a Nepo baby, be the Margaret Qualley of Nepo
yes.
babies.
Yes. I love that.
Moving on to Best Director, I think here we have a few expected things and then two surprises. One is a shock, and one is just a little bit more of a surprise. Sean Baker and Nora, Edward Berger, Conclave, Brady Corbett, The Brutalist. Expected all of those. Would have thought John M. Chu for Wicked, as those are like the four films that I think could win the Oscar for Best Picture. But Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez, I think that's a really strong one, really strong choice. Coralie Farge for The Substance is an exciting thing. Um, and Payal Kapadia for All We Imagine as Light is a real shock because I think people thought I'm Still Here might have gotten in, The Seed of the Sacred Fig.
See the sacred
Um,
fig, yeah.
and the most interesting part of that is that All We Imagine as Light is not an Oscar submission for Best International Feature. So it cannot be nominated there. I would be a little surprised to see this like lone director nomination type thing, even though it has the international feature also at the Globes, translate to the Oscars. I also haven't seen this film, and I will make sure to do that ASAP because I would like
It's
to be able to. It's on my
fantastic.
list. I'm
It's
looking forward to it.
fantastic. Yeah.
So, but I'm a little surprised there. And the expected one that missed was Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part Two.
Mhm.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting much for that, but you know how I feel about Doom too.
Well,
But
I was gonna say, I think we've all been expecting this year to be like very male dominated, and I do think there is a world where our Oscar five are all just gonna be men. But like the fact that we did get both Corley and Payal in here, I think is amazing. Like this is such a good category. And I would, no offense to like the Denise of the world, but I would much rather have, somebody new and interesting that come in, and this is such a great category. I'm so impressed, even though, like, yes, Clarence didn't get in, and there are some very obvious snubs to me. I think as a whole, these nominations are just so strong, and a category like this, I think, shows that these voters are paying attention, because it
I
would have
will
been obvious to just name check Denis, right?
I will say the non-appearance of John Chu is very interesting to me because I just can't wrap my head around the things he did for that show. And I think what might have happened is people say, oh, well, it's just like the stage show. And it's like, well, no, there were very specific changes made. All the stuff was done, they had the live singing and it was put in so seamlessly. Plus, like Cynthia wanted to do her own stunts. And, when you start learning kind of the minutia about what happened behind the scenes and how John kind of orchestrated that, it's like I could much more see him versus a Denis or versus maybe even some of these people on the list. I'm really excited for Coralie, very excited for Payal. Um, Edward Berger, I think, did a fantastic job, and he's another one where there are things behind the scenes that happened that you're like, oh, that's great, and they should be in the running, but I don't know how much those things are considered.
I also think it's important to remember that like Atonement beat No Country for Old Men for Best Picture Drama back in the day at the Globes. Like Conclave over The Brutalist is very possible, but if we get
Mhm.
The Brutalist, we'll see what kind of year we're in for. And if we're looking at screenplay, which I don't think we need to talk about too much, it's the same as the director nominees with All We Imagine Is Light swapped out for Real Pain, which is
Yeah,
pretty standard, I think. I had not expected The Substance. I thought Saturday Night and Sing Sing would get in there. But I think it's otherwise pretty standard. And that's not a lot of surprises there. It's good for all those films, especially A Real Pain.
agreed.
So, and I think we should unfortunately end on the new category, which is called Best Sequel. Just kidding. It's called Best.
Hey, it was like I was like, wait a minute.
Sorry, six out of eight films are actually sequels, and one is based on a show. There's only one truly original film in there, which is The Wild Robot. He's nominated for those paying attention and who care, which I don't think is that many, but maybe that's why they're doing it. Alien Romulus, Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, Gladiator 2. So that is another nomination I didn't neglected that for. Inside Out 2, Twisters, Wicked, and The Wild Robot.
Well, I
I don't
want
know.
to say just a quick little thing about the whole idea of like, because people are like, oh my God, Hollywood's dead. All you see is sequels and reboots and da da blah blah da. And I'm like, y'all realize we are in the craziest times of our lives. People are tired. They don't want to think, and that's okay. The idea is that you want to give a good mix of both. And I think throughout this season, we have had a good mix of both. We've had our big, box office sequels. And yes, of course, they're going to do much better because they're a lot more mainstream. You can take more people to them, they're going to sell more tickets. But we also have some fantastic independent film or with original screenplays or just, kind of original content that is getting traction. People are watching. It just might be on a Netflix, on a streamer, or on somewhere where it's going to be a lot more accessible. So um, this one, it does make me laugh because, yeah, everything except for the wild robot. But, people want to see what happens. They want to see that story keep going.
Not to be a hater, but I really did think Ryan Reynolds was gonna get in for Best Actor Comedy, so the fact that he didn't just makes me really, I mean, I told y'all that was my favorite category. I do have a question that I want to pose before we wrap, which is like, what movies do we think really benefited from today, and what movies do we
Mm.
think may have taken a hit, or does it not matter, right? Like,
think being anywhere is good. Getting nominations anywhere
Mm,
is a good thing. I don't think there's a group. I never, even in their height of notoriety, I don't think the Golden Globes were actually toxic for recognition. And so I think Wicked definitely had a lackluster day. Sing Sing and Gladiator 2 had very poor showings.
yeah.
Whereas I think The Substance, Emilia Perez, and All We Imagine Is Light are like way, way up because people didn't know what to think about those. That said, I still think Wicked can win here without much of an issue. That doesn't mean it's going to
Hmm.
be a definite Best Picture winner at the Oscars.
I think that Substance definitely is going to benefit from this because I think, like it was saying, people didn't quite know what to do with it. And so it was just kind of in this holding pattern. And now that we're starting to get like actual, awards based recognition for it, you're going to see more people actually have that in their conversations now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Shadam,
And I think something
answer your
like,
own question.
well, no, I think I would agree. And I think something like the piano lesson or Sing Sing, like maybe not having a great day, it's not going to make much of a difference. Um, but yeah, and I mean, Substance for me was one that I didn't know what to make of. So I think it doing really well actually shows that people are getting it. Because my thing was like, are people going to be turned off by it? And clearly they're not.
Mhm.
Which is interesting. I guess I didn't realize Conclave was as strong of a player as it was, but I mean it's clearly like maybe top 2, top 3 at this point, which
It's so good.
I love it. I just didn't think like I don't know, some people were like, "Oh, it's like campy and this and that." And I didn't take it that way. I thought it was actually a really interesting meditation on like religion in the modern era, but I didn't know if like the vaping pope or vaping cardinal was going to be like
Well,
an
I think
issue.
that it gives like elevated Dan Brown if that's a category. But there is something to be said about it's a thriller, but like a semi-religious thriller and set in the kind of taboo nature of like Catholicism and everything going on with that. Plus you have male-female dynamics, plus you have sexuality dynamics. And yeah, I thought that that one was actually like a recipe for awards. I'm actually surprised it isn't doing more in terms of marketing. Like they aren't pushing more actors out there, but maybe they
I,
don't think they have to. So
I do think Conclave is a front runner for Best Picture Drama with its main competition and really only competition at this point being The Brutalist. I think the race to
Mhm.
watch is really Best Film, Comedy, or Musical because I would have told you before today that was Nora versus Wicked, but Emilia Perez is huge and The Substance
yeah.
is really big too, and that's a four-way race. And I don't the Golden Globe winners, especially comedy and musical, very rarely match up with the Oscars, so I don't know what that means. But let's take a moment to just appreciate an organization that gives out a lot of awards and has some fun choices. And we will certainly see as we get to SAG and shortlists in the other order, shortlist first. We'll see how things go. But I am definitely intrigued. I am not heavily disappointed because there are some good inclusions, and I think there's plenty of time left of this season.
Stacey elevated Dan Brown is gonna kill me. Like that's all I'm gonna think of when I think of Conclave now. Like Oscar nomination morning, I'm just gonna.
When I was watching it, I was like, this is like Dan Brown. I was like, no, that's not correct. And then I was like, elevated Dan Brown.
You heard it here first, everyone. Elevated Dan Brown. That's the new marketing slogan. Credit to
Yeah.
Awards
For
Buzz for that
God's
one.
sake.
And if you're gonna be a nepo baby, be the Margaret Qualley of nepo. Stacey just gave us so many gems today.
There we go. Well, thank you
Yeah.
as always, everyone, for joining us here. We missed our friends Sarah and Scott, but we're happy to be here and we'll certainly talk again. I'm Abe Friedtanzer
I'm Shadan Larki.
And I'm Stacey Yvonne.
for being with us.